big news yesterday out of Eagan with the Minnesota Vikings announcing that they found and named a new general manager for the Vikes. And coming from Seattle, the assistant general manager for the Seahawks, Nolan Teasley, to replace Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is GM. He's been 13 seasons with the Seahawks, started out as an intern, worked his way up to the assistant GM. So quite the rise for this young man, young compared to me. Let's go to Star Tribune's Ben Goessling, another young man here, to discuss the addition here. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, yeah. It's you talk about young man. I think he's maybe a year younger than me. So it's in one hand he's a contemporary, and another hand it's like, okay, yeah, it's people my age are getting GM jobs now. That's where we are.
13 years from intern to NFL general manager.
Yeah.
That's a pretty quick rise, but it is part of the youthening of the sport. I mean, with Coach Kevin O'Connell is a pretty young head coach when he was named. Any surprise to this picking this guy?
Not necessarily. I mean, I suppose only in the sense that, as you mentioned, he goes from being an intern to being the general manager of an NFL team in, 13 years is, I suppose, a decent amount of time in anybody's career. But this was a guy that came in as an intern after leaving football, or thinking he was going to be leaving football. He took a job in marketing. I think worked in marketing for about 6 years, and he's told his story a number of times. But he said, this is not what I want to do. I want to get back into the football world, and let me see what I can do. So he wrote a letter to all 32 teams, letting them know of his background as a player, his interest level in just doing whatever he could to climb in the NFL world, and obviously picked a great spot to be. It was his home state. It brought him into Seattle at the point that the Seahawks were kind of building that team that won their first Super Bowl back in Nolan Teasley's first year with the team. So he's kind of been through it with that Russell Wilson group, that Legion of Boom group, and seen that group get kind of torn down, so to speak. They pivoted away. They didn't really bottom out, but they had to reformat a lot of that team. And the work they did in the draft, the work they did to bring in Sam Darnold, led to them winning the Super Bowl last year. So he's had a pretty good up-close view of how to build a championship team under John Schneider. And that relationship that he had with John Schneider certainly helped raise his stock around the NFL and made him an attractive candidate to the Vikings. So yeah, only a surprise in the sense of where he came from, but when you see where he's come from working with this type of a regime, it makes sense.
Well, yeah, I guess in that short amount of time, he's had a lot of exposure and participated in the success. So in his time with Seattle, they've been in the playoffs 9 times, 3 Super Bowl appearances, 2 championships.
Yeah. So
that's pretty good experience. If you're going to soak in anything about what makes things work, that's a pretty good run to do it in.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that is as good of a run as you've seen in the NFL. I mean, you have your Philadelphias, your Kansas Cities that have done it a number of different ways. But like I say, I think the fact that they basically had 2 different cores of these teams, and they had to go through that life cycle of, okay, these players are getting older, these players are getting more expensive. How do we reformat this? And what approach do we take? Do we bottom all the way out, or do we say we're still going to try to be competitive even as we reformat things? And that's the latter approach. What Seattle's done is kind of what the Vikings have done too. Yeah. So when you see the whole life cycle, I think it's helped them a lot.
Well, so this quote from Mark Wilf yesterday, strong understanding of talent evaluation at the collegiate and pro levels. Is that an indicator of an approach, or is that an indicator of maybe where the Vikings have not done as well? I mean, how do you, if they're talking about that talent evaluation, and obviously you got to deal with trades and free agents, et cetera, but what does that tell you?
Well, I think you hit on it there. It is a reflection of what they haven't done very well, and it's a reflection of what they wanted this general manager to be. It's noteworthy that basically all of the candidates they had for this job, with the exception of Rob Brzezinski, their executive vice president of football operations, were from a scouting background. So this is obviously a big shift from Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, who came from the analytics world, came from Wall Street at one point in his career to go work in the NFL. So it is a more traditional approach, and you heard Mark Wilf use the word traditional a lot in this process. They wanted somebody who has been kind of in the trenches as a scout. He's been to pro days. He's been to college games. He understands what it's like to evaluate a player you might take in the 5th round in addition to a player you might take in the 1st round. So that whole process, I think, was important to them. They have not drafted very well in the last few years, and I think having somebody that came from that side of things that could work with the scouts, work with the coaches, work with the salary cap folks, work with the analytics folks. I think they wanted somebody that could do all of those things, but the scout piece of it certainly was a big part of what they were looking for, and I think a big part of what made Nolan Teasley the pick.
Yeah, and that was his intern job, was a scouting intern. So you see his background there, and obviously, the kind of the knock on Goessling before he was let go is a lot of people were criticizing his drafting.
Yeah. I mean that has been, and you could talk about how well he ran the front office, how well he kind of built relationships apart from across different departments. But the reality is, if they had drafted better and they had built more of a young core that is a little more affordable, a little more sustainable, he's probably still here. I mean, I think drafts are the lifeblood of a team. We heard Rob Brzezinski say that this offseason, and there's certainly lots of NFL teams that believe that. And if you hit that right, you can keep your job for a long time. I think that piece of it, drafting better than they have, is certainly going to be a high priority for Nolan Teasley, and something they, I think, wanted to get in a new GM. That's very much a priority for them.
And one last question here, and then we got to get going here. But I wanted to highlight this quote from Ziggy Wilf, is that he understands schematics and player traits at a high level, and that knowledge earns him credibility with each coaching staff he's been around. So, I mean, that's a confidence that they have that he'll gel well with the coaching staff. What is your sense of that?
Well, I think it's important to point out, and just in doing some reporting over the weekend, he actually has a relationship with Kevin O'Connell, and I think they've gotten to know each other through Kevin O'Connell's connection to John Schneider. Those two have not worked together. Neither John Schneider nor Nolan Teasley has worked directly with Kevin O'Connell, but you meet people around the league and you get to know what they do, and O'Connell holds John Schneider in very high regard. The resume speaks for itself, and held Nolan Teasley in very high regard because of those connections. So that ability to work with the coaches, I think, is already, it's going to take a little time to build, but you start from a good place there because of that prior relationship. And I think that's going to be so important for them, finding someone that partners well with Kevin O'Connell. And it, by all accounts, O'Connell was very high on Teasley, and is I think that's going to lead to a strong start to the relationship. They've got big decisions to make at quarterback and a number of other places, but they'll start from a place of valuing each other in the way they came to their respective jobs.
Yeah, and that relationship and that kind of making sure they gel is so important here as we move forward. Ben Goessling, Minnesota Star-Tribune, thanks for joining us with your insights into the new Vikings GM.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Have a great